We're going to talk about editing and the various actions that are associated with editing now. The first action we're going to work with is copy. So you need to select your source before you actually paste it to your destination. Your source could be one cell or a number of cells. In this example, we're going to select more than one cell, A4 down to A8. I just simply clicked and dragged, but you could use those other selection methods if you'd rather, like shift click or shift and down arrows, and that would be your consecutive selection. Once I've got that portion for my source selected, I'm going to focus up on that home tab of my ribbon, clipboard group, and choose either the copy command, or you can see that in brackets here in the screen tip, Control-C is the keyboard shortcut. I'm going to choose Control-C as the keyboard shortcut. Once I've done that, the selection handle appears. Also, you're going to see on the status bar that instead of Ready, it now reads Select Destination and press Enter or choose Paste. So we've already selected our source. We've chosen a copy method. Now we got to go to the destination. We're going to still stay in the file called Budget, but go to sheet number 3, though you certainly could paste this source in another spreadsheet in another file. I'm going to paste starting in G8 so that that source is going to be copied starting in G8. Back on the Home tab, Clipboard Group, you're going to see the Paste command. We've got Control-V as the keyboard shortcut indicated in the screen tip. So I'm going to use Control-V as the keyboard shortcut, seeing how I use Control-C for copy to start off with. Control-V. A few things have happened. Firstly, you can see that now we've got some content starting in G8. So our source has now been pasted starting in G8. The second thing that I'd like you to see is that we've got a screen tip here, and when I point to this bottom right hand portion of this pasted area, Paste Options is your screen tip. I click on the down arrow and you'll note that there's a lot of choices here I can work with, options to work with for paste. The last thing I'd like you to focus in on is the status bar again, and you'll still see it still reads Select Destination and press Enter or choose Paste. So I can continue selecting another destination and choosing Paste, Control-V, yet another, and this time I'll just click on Paste, and one more other destination, Paste, and so on and so on. So until I press Escape to cancel, I can continue pasting this source in a destination even outside of this file. I'm going to press Escape though to cancel. And you can see now we no longer have a screen tip and the status bar reads Ready. What about instead of copying, what about moving, which is also known as cut? I'm going to go back to sheet number 2 this time. Choose Hello in A1 as my source. Home tab, Clipboard Group, Cut command. Keyboard shortcut is the alternate method here instead of clicking on Cut, and the keyboard shortcut is Control-X. I'm going to, though, this time use my command just by clicking on it. Once I've done that, you'll see a selection handle. Status bar is reading Select Destination and choose Paste. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to stay in the same spreadsheet just for this example. Choose Paste, and you can see that the source has been moved to my destination. No smart tag in this case because Cut does not offer up a smart tag for paste, and the status bar reads Ready. You can only cut once to the destination. Autofill is another way of looking at copy. Copying, though, to consecutive cells, neighboring cells. If I type in, let's say, JAN for January, watch what happens when I position my mouse symbol, which is a white cross, on what I call the period here on the bottom right hand corner of my cell. It becomes a black cross. I'm going to click and drag at this point, and even before I release my mouse, you can see that the pop-up is telling me what will be the month in this last cell of the selection when I release my mouse. So, starting at my source, all the way down through to the destination here, I've got all of the months of the year, and even it's recognized that it's in its abbreviated form, and it's case sensitive as well. So if I would have typed in January in full and an uppercase, it would have filled it in with all of the months of the year in its full unabbreviated form, and they would have all been in uppercase. Watch what happens though when I go the opposite direction. So instead of down top to the bottom, left to right, it treats it now as a pure copy all the way across. If I go back though, instead of going from top down, I'm going down past top and up, it's now actually going to give me the previous months and so on. Days of the week is another pattern that Excel understands. So if I type in Monday and then I autofill, let's say to the right, you'll see that once I release my mouse, I've got the days of the week in these selected cells. If I go the opposite direction, instead of left to right, I go top down, it's going to give me a pure copy. If I go from left, instead of left to right, right to left, of course it knows what days of the week precede Monday. What about numbers? If I type in a 20 and I autofill, you'll see it comes up with the same numbers. But if I go to the Smart tag this time and I focus in on autofill options and click on the down arrow, instead of copy cells as the choice here, which happens to be the default, and choose fill series, Excel will increase that number by 1 throughout the selection. But suppose you actually wanted to increase by tens. So you want 20 and then you want 30, etc. Notice I had to type in 2 numbers, each in their own cell, and then I simply select it. So using the white cross, not the black cross for autofill, I'm just using my selection mouse symbol, the white cross, in order to do that. Now at this point, I will pop my mouse symbol back on my autofill handle, drag down, let's say at this point, and then you're going to see increments of 10. I just can't drag diagonally here and expect Excel to behave with any kind of autofill. So if I wanted to copy now my content, I pull it in this direction. If I actually copy upwards, and I'm going to just go on top of content here that exists, you're going to see that of course it knows to decrease or take away 10 in this case for every one of those cells. Back to sheet 1, I'm now going to talk about another editing action. So we've just gone through copy and working with autofill as an alternate copy action, and then we worked with move, which is also known as cut. Now we're going to get into delete and then work with insert. So I'm going to select one row here, row 13, and you can see as I'm pointing to the header for row 13, I've got a mouse symbol that looks like a black right arrow. I'm going to click, and the entire row is selected. I could select this one row, or I could select a number of rows at this point just by clicking and dragging down, or I could use a control click on another row, and then I've got 2. Control click, of course, remember, is for non-consecutive selection. But we're just going to work with one row. Delete on your keyboard actually does not give you the delete action. It gives you the clear content action. So when I press delete, the placeholder for row 13 is still there, but the content is gone, only the content. So actually if you had some formats assigned or associated to the cells that are selected right now, they would still remain. If you typed in some new data, the formats will come to life again. Delete on your keyboard is clear contents. Now suppose I want to bring back my content. I made a mistake. I want to undo. Undo is a command here on your quick access toolbar. Wrap around left arrow, and when I point to it, it offers up a screen tip with, in brackets, the keyboard shortcut Control-Z. I'm going to use Control-Z instead of clicking on the command. And you can see that advertising comes back. If delete on your keyboard is clear contents, what is the keyboard shortcut for delete? Control minus. You've got two control keys on your keyboard, CTRL. Hold down one, tap the minus sign. That's not on your numeric keypad, but the one that's sort of to the left of the backspace a couple of doors down. And once you do that, you can see how that entire row is taken out plus its content. I'm just going to bring it back though by using Control-Z. Control minus is delete. Delete keyboard key is clear contents. Control-Z is undo. And escape is cancel. So if Control minus is delete, keyboard shortcut for insert is Control plus. I'm going to now highlight a couple of columns. So we're going to focus in on column A and note that the down arrow, the black down arrow, is visible when I point to column A. Drag across and you'll see that two columns are selected. Though I could have clicked here and done a shift click, or I could have clicked and used my shift right arrow if I wanted to instead. Control plus, using the plus sign that's directly to the left of the backspace key, you'll note that the plus sign is actually the shifted equal sign. I'm not going to say Control Shift equal as the keyboard shortcut. I'm going to say Control plus, and you're going to have to remember to hold down the Control key, hold down the Shift key, and tap the equal sign, which will activate the plus sign. Once I do that, you can see two brand new columns are in the place of where the old two columns were, and all the content is shifted over to the right. Plus, there's a smart tag. When I point to the smart tag, it says Insert Options. I click on the down arrow, and it offers up some options that you can explore on your own, but I do want us to just focus in on the clear formatting choice. So if you truly wanted a brand new, fresh two columns without any formats, because by default you will get formats that are associated with the previous two columns, you can clear formatting by choosing that last radio button. But I'm just going to press Escape so that it cancels my drop down there for my smart tag. And I'm just going to undo Control-Z just to bring us back to what we had before. Suppose I only had one cell selected when I used my keyboard shortcut for insert. So Control plus, when I only have one cell or a handful of cells selected, not an entire row or column selected, it will come up with the insert dialog box. The default here is shift cells down, and I just want you to see what happens when I click OK. A whole new cell is inserted exactly at A5, and all of that content only in that column, because I only had one cell selected, is shifted down. I'm going to undo, and if I highlight more than one cell, let's say to the right here, and I do a Control plus, and if I press enter instead of clicking OK, it'll do the same. You're going to see that 4 cells are inserted. Now I know in this example here for budget and sheet 1, we probably don't necessarily want to have those 4 cells inserted right here. But if you ever have a situation where your data is not quite lining up to the labels, or they're one off, I say, you might want to insert some cells so that we've got some shifting happening. Or, I'm just going to undo here, you might want to consider deleting some cells because it might be the opposite scenario. You have too much and it's not lining up properly. I've got 4 cells selected right now, not an entire row or column. When I use Control minus, the delete dialog box comes up. At this point though, it's important to note that I could delete the entire columns A, B, C, and D. Just going to move my dialog box over by clicking and dragging on the title of the dialog box, because I've got radio buttons for both entire row or column. But watch what happens when I follow through with OK with shift cells up. 4 cells are deleted, all content is moved up from where those cells were before.